Aloha everyone, and welcome to another Tinker's Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer, and in this video I'd like to share with you the stories, the testimonies, and the results of what people have been experiencing using quantum energy to help their garden thrive, help their plants that they're growing. Now this video applies to anybody who's interested in growing. If you have a garden, or if you're you have crops, agriculture, landscapers, and so forth, because this is what people, real life stories, are experiencing when they take these quantum tools, primarily provided by Leela Quantum Tech, these quantum blocks that they sell. And when they use these tools with regards to plants, these are the stories that are coming out from them. And they're really quite amazing as to what quantum energy, the impact of that has on plant growth and so forth. So these are actually, I grabbed as many pictures as I could from the chat history on Telegram, plus pictures that people have sent me in terms of like what their experiences are, which is great. I love the fact that you guys are out there tinkering. I've been tinkering. Philip tinkers with just like what else can this do, in terms of like how to basically improve stuff. And one of those things is your garden. So now the first thing I want to kind of leverage is that it's not magic, right? It's one facet of multitude of things that actually help a plant thrive. So your basic stuff, obviously, for plant thriving is it needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs air, especially CO2, and it also needs nutrients in the soil. So that's your basic stuff that a plant needs to thrive, and that's what I would refer to on the left diagram here as your biochemical stuff, right? It's the biochemical, the biophotons, the water, it's what the plant needs just as a baseline. That's par for the course, right? And then there's another kind of area of study that also goes into the electromagnetic aspects of plant growth, and that's called electroculture, which actually would be a whole separate video all by itself, and I'll probably end up doing one someday. But what I'd like to talk about is this third little bubble right there, and that's the fact that there's the third component. So not only does a living thing have this whole biochemical thing going on, and also a tremendous amount of electromagnetic stuff going on in terms of its health and wellness and well-being and all that, but there's also this energy component. And that energy, in this regards to this video, we're calling quantum, but you talk to different people, other people will call it ether, chi, prana, mana, or just a bunch of different names for what this energy is. But it's that life, that's that energy that permeates all of our existence, and it's all around us. And so when these tools interact with that energy and they actually generate that energy, then some pretty amazing things happen. So let's jump right in to some of the results that people have been reporting. The very first thing that people have shared is that, and I've done this myself, and so these are pictures that are coming either through Telegram or sent to me, or my own pictures. But the idea here is, this is an example you see where the picture shows that someone had charged the seeds, planted the seeds. The left are just, they didn't do anything with the seeds, they just got them, planted them. And then the one on the right is they charged the seeds in a quantum block before they planted them. And you can see what it looks like within a few weeks. The amazing amount of growth and the lusciousness of just the plants, the sprouts that are as they're growing. And now I did my own experiment, and I got to apologize, I don't have photos of it. I lost the video and the photos of this experiment I did over a summer, I think in 2019. It's one of those weird things. If you live in Hawaii and you're half a mile from the ocean, you deal with a lot of electronic problems because of the salt air. So I had a year where I lost 3 laptops in 1 year. So I lost everything that year. So I don't have the photos, but I do have the story. And what I did was I took some heirloom seeds. So I bought heirloom seeds off of Amazon, and I broke them into 2 parts, right? 2 halves. One half I charged, one half I did not charge, and I sent them off to 3 different friends on the mainland. And asked them, hey, plant them, tell me what happens. And so what happened was they all did it. They all planted the non-charged seeds, and they planted the charged seeds. And then what they did was they reported back to me that all of them experienced, first of all, all 3 of them, and myself, we all experienced the exact same results. The plants that had grown from the charged seeds sprouted faster, and they produced more, and roughly by a third of the plant's life cycle compared to the control group. In other words, they grew faster, more luscious, and produced beans or whatever they're, tomatoes, whatever they're producing, they produced them faster than the plants, than the seeds that were not charged. And so that was a pretty amazing. So that's 4 of us doing this in different parts of the country, and we all had the exact same results. So there is something quite interesting about applying quantum energy to seeds. And again, this is the Tinker Channel, so I encourage all of you to go and just tinker with that. It's planting season, so give it a try. Do your own experiments, but the idea here is if you impart quantum energy into those seeds, that plant is going to thrive much more than if it didn't get that quantum energy from the experiments that we've done. Now, we also, back in the day, I know this was probably years ago, we had an individual who was a microgreen farmer, and so they decided to go ahead and charge one set of seeds and one set, not. And so they did the same experiment, and they shared their pictures with me. And so the one on the left is non-charged, the one on the right is charged seeds. And so basically, when it was time for them to harvest, I guess it's that I don't do micro farming, but I guess it's that, like, looks like wheatgrass. They make juice out of it or something. Sorry, that's not my thing. But they basically showed the pictures of what it looked like when they were about to harvest it. So you can just see from the pictures over here on the left that, the ones that were charged, which is way more growth, way more lusciousness, thrive. But then what he was interested in was the root mat. He was like, yeah, the root mat, look at the root mat. The root map on both of these examples, if you take a look at the one on the left right here, this was the non-charged, but if you look at the right, he was amazed because in all of the time he'd been micro-farming greens that, he had never seen such a dense, root map on his produce that he'd ever created. And that apparently in that world that's a really good sign of health and obviously improve the produce that he's selling as well. So we found that was a real interesting experiment that happened as well with regards to charging seeds. So that kind of gives you an idea, that hey, this is really happening and this is pretty cool. And what could you do if you tried it? Now the next one here is people that actually go out and actually charge plants, and mostly it's people who have plants that are not doing well, and they'll go out and you'll see that, here's someone with an infinity block, they put it on their plant. These are all from our Telegram chat group, by the way. And here's another plant where someone put a quantum block around the plant. And then here's me right here. I just was tinkering around and I got a plant for Easter last year and I just put it between my infinity block plates. But the whole idea here is the idea of like, okay, just instead of the seeds, how about do we just charge the plant? Now, the one funny thing about it is that people do this, but you guys, you always forget to put the after picture. But they do post after that, hey, it got better. 3 days later, it's doing better. The leaves are full now. They're not all wilted and blah, blah, blah. But, there's not enough after pictures. But we do have one example, and this is Philip himself. Philip von Holzendorf is my friend, and he's also the owner-operator of Leela Quantum Tech. But he did one where he had a houseplant on the left. And this houseplant was not doing well. As you could see, the plant was yellow and the leaves were dying. And so what he did was he charged this plant with one of his blocks. And then a few months later, look at this plant. It is just luscious and green and healthy and vibrant just by charging the whole plant, in a container. So that's another way of doing it. So you can either if it's in the ground, you can charge it above ground. If it's in a container, obviously you'd want to put the whole container in there. And then look at what the results are. You infuse that little plant with just this quantum energy and just it boosts its life cycle, and boom, all of a sudden, the problem kind of just alleviates. And so that's pretty cool what happened here with sickly plants and that sort of thing. Now, the next one here that also has been quite remarkable is the idea of quantum broadcasting. Now, for those of you who own blocks and you've seen the tutorials that Philip and I have made, the quantum block is a concentrated quantum sun. It's this real concentrated quantum energy that literally has the ability to charge other things, i.e. that's what it's doing, right? Charging plants, charging seeds. And then so this block radiates out energy in a field, and depending on which block you have, the field is a certain size. And then some of right now there's the one called the Grand Block, and it covers like 2 kilometers. There's an infinity block one that's 1 kilometer in terms of the field, the diameter of the energy field. So in this example here, in this garden, someone posted a picture of their infinity block in the middle of their garden, which means that everything around that block within literally a kilometer, and then of course it's more and more concentrated. The closer you get to the center of the block, right? So even though the field goes out a kilometer, you know, when you're that close to the block, you're getting a lot more concentrated quantum energy closer to the block. So he put it in the middle of their garden in order to then give the plants all that quantum energy through the field that it's projecting. Okay, so I call that quantum broadcasting, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the idea here is you can actually then just, you know, give all your plants quantum energy just by by putting your block out there. But here's what's interesting, and here's another example someone posted of using their travel block, and they put it out there in their garden with their plants. But here's the thing that's really interesting, and here's a picture of Philip at Leela Quantum Tech, and now he did that in a greenhouse. And Philip's story is, you know, he'd had a greenhouse going for quite a while, and then when he finally developed the infinity block, I think about a year and a half ago, he decided to put the infinity block in his garden. And for the first time ever, these are the zucchinis that came from that experiment or that tink. And so he's pretty grinning ear to ear. He grew these. This is like never had happened before until he actually put the infinity block in his greenhouse. And then all of a sudden, he's got elephant-sized zucchinis coming out the wazoo. And so he shared this picture on Telegram, and it's really quite hilarious because these are literally the size of your leg. He's probably bigger than a small kid at that point. He's definitely bigger than his dog. But you could just imagine, I mean, just the amount of that life force energy, that quantum energy going into those plants 24 hours a day by simply, you know, putting that infinity block in the garden had this incredible effect on growth. And you know, and the produce that the plants produce. So there's something pretty wild happening here with regards to quantum gardening. You know, so definitely encouraged. So think about that: charging sick plants, seeds, and so forth. And here's a couple more examples. Now, another way to do it, aside from seeds and plants and broadcasting, is the water. So quantum charged water, we've discovered, has a remarkable effect on plants. And the simplest thing, and everybody who gets a block, you should do this if you have anyone in your family that's like, you know, skeptical about like, what did you buy? And then, oh, you know, why did you buy that? Hey, no problem. Simple. Go to the grocery store, get a couple of flowers, you know, the same bunch of flowers, and then take them in 2 different glasses, 2 different vases, charge the water you give one, and don't charge the water for the other one. And here's an example that's literally, this was posted on Telegram by one of our members. They charged the water, and one flower didn't get, you know, no quantum energy. One plant got the quantum energy water, and then look what happened after 5 days. The one that didn't get just regular old water, the same water now, it's just, you know, one got charged, one didn't. So the regular water, it's just, you know, obviously your cut flowers, everybody knows, they all start to wilt and die, and within a week you throw them away. But try to imagine 5 days later and the cut flower in the quantum charged water is thriving. It's just happy, and it looks as good as the day it was chopped down, you know. And so anyone can do this experiment, and the results are 100% the same every time. This is just one picture of many. And I've done this, and everyone I know that tinkers around with this has tried this and went, wow, that works, you know. And it's one way to show, hey, you know what? Quantum energy is real. Something's happening. Nobody can really explain exactly the physics of it or the biochemistry of it, but it's happening. Here's the results. And so the water has this incredible effect when you charge it on plants. And so that is definitely one thing. One other thing you could do for your quantum garden, on top of, you know, the other things that I've mentioned, is charge the water that you give your plants. And so kind of, you know, like, and just in a summary here, because that's what we're getting, and I wanted to share that with you because it's really exciting. It's spring, okay? It's spring. Thank God. I'm so happy it's spring. And so I'm starting my garden. I know you are starting your garden. So now this year, okay, if you got a block, please use that block and tell us your story. What happened and what did you do? You know, share, because this is so, we all learn from each other. So here's my last parting thoughts on you know, using quantum energy in your garden. So we talked about, you know, charging seeds and sprouts, charging plants. Now another thing about charging trees now is, one time somebody reported that they took the plates off of their block and they put their blocks on either side of a tree trunk. I mean, you know, like a big tree, right? It was a fruit-bearing tree. They put their plates on either side of the trunk. I mean, it's a big tree. So, but just doing that, that's all they did, and they just left it there for a few hours, right? And then they took the plates away. Well, what happened was that one tree, there were multiple trees that produced the same amount, the same type of fruit. But the one tree that got charged And they did it early in the year, right before they, the flowers come and then the fruit comes, right? And they did it early in the year. And what happened was the one tree that got charged flowered first, produced fruit first, produced more fruit than the other trees, and was done like way earlier than the other trees were doing. The other trees, were just like way behind, like a month behind this first tree in terms of flowering, fruiting, and producing more. And even when the regular trees actually got to the point where they were fruiting, they only produced their normal amount of fruit that they did every year. But the one that was charged produced twice as much fruit. And that was like, wow, that was an amazing story. So you can charge trees, just separate the plates of your block and put it on both sides of the trunk and leave it there for a few hours. Okay, we talked about charging water. Now, I want to say that there's been a lot of discussion about how do I charge water for a garden? Like how do I get, because here's the thing, guys, and from the tutorials that you need to charge the water for about 3 minutes in an infinity block, blah, 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 right? And so, but it needs to sit there. And so how do you charge, like let's say, water out of the hose and so forth. So it's definitely a challenge. And I know that Philip's going to watch this video. So Philip, when you watch this video, I think that's one of probably the challenges. The next challenge for Leela is like, how do you develop agricultural or garden products? How do we develop something that can charge water in bulk, that you would use? And so we've had some thoughts, I just want to throw some thoughts out where, using, those metal hoses and charging the whole entire hose. And if the water from one end to the other end takes 3 minutes to get through, then that would be one way that the water would be subjected to the energy for at least 3 minutes. Other ways would be charging a rain barrel of water at a time, with a block. But yeah, that's probably the one thing for in gardens that is probably the biggest challenge out there is like, well, how do we do that? And I haven't figured it out either. I was thinking you could use metallic tape, like they make copper tape, they make aluminum tape, and then charge the tape and then wrap that around my garden hose and that sort of thing. Because I do container gardening, but if I were to actually have like raised beds and things, the challenge with providing charged water again is it needs to be still, it needs to be exposed, right? So you have to basically sit it still for 3 minutes inside of the field of a block. So that's probably the biggest challenge here in terms of charging stuff. If it's just container gardening, it's a lot easier, right? You can just put your container of water, charge that water, and then feed it to your plants. But if you're using hoses and irrigation, then we haven't solved that challenge yet. But I challenge all you tinkers in the world. Figure out a way where we can impart quantum energy into moving water so that it gets that whole 3 minutes before it gets to the plants, and and then share that with the group. So keep thinking, guys, keep tinkering. We'll figure that one out. Now, another story that came out of the Telegram chat group is with individuals. Now, this has happened more than once. I've actually tried this myself, is charging rocks and charging crystals. And then putting them around the base of trees and plants and so forth. And that has, and the reports back on those people who've tried that is like all positive. Like I charged a bunch of rocks and I put them around my tree, or like I have landscaping rocks, so I put them in the block and then I put them back, and just the plants around those rocks thrive. I mean, they just go crazy next to the ones that didn't have charged rocks. And I've done the same thing with container gardening, where I'll take a selenite. If you know selenite, it's long, right? It grows in really long crystals. And I'll take like a bunch of like selenite, I don't know what they call it, like selenite sticks or something, and I charged a bunch of them, and I would just stick one selenite stick, in a container with the plant. And the ones that I did that with, the plant just, thrived. And the ones I didn't do were just normal. I mean, normal is not bad, by the way, right? Obviously, normal is normal. But if but you can take it past normal, and you can really get this plant to go woo, and by adding some of these, this quantum energy to it. Now, the other one too that I want to talk about is wire mesh. And so one thing that I saw someone doing, and I thought that was a great idea, you can buy wire mesh, right? And then you could charge the mesh in your block, and then wrap that around if you did a raised bed, you could wrap that mesh around the bed, right? Which is one, or you could wrap that around a container, and that way you've got if you have a charged item or charged metal, wrapped around a raised bed, then that whole bed is getting quantum energy from that mesh. So that's one way to do it, aside from like just quantum broadcasting and so forth. So that's something to think about. Now, the other thing that I want to mention too that has worked really well is using frequencies. And so we had an early adopter, and I just, and his name was Jack Newell. He's no longer with us, God bless him. But when he was tinkering around in the early days, along with myself and a bunch of others, he discovered where he took the frequency of plant food, and he basically had a house full of plants and that weren't doing really well. And so what he did was he had a block, so he made capsules, the little brass capsules with the spheres in them. He got the supplies and he made his own, except what he did was he charged all those capsules with plant food frequency in his block. So he just would copy the frequency of plant food onto the capsule, load them up with charged spheres, and then he took one capsule and he put it inside the container of all of his houseplants. And his report back was, whoa, they turned around. They all went from being sickly and not healthy and weak to strong stems. They were sturdy and luscious and vibrant. And he was like, yeah, it worked, And so just like my experiment with the crystal, the selenite sticks, other people using rocks, he was using a frequency, which I tried that, and hey, guess what? It works. So, think about the idea that you can transfer the frequency of plant food on to your plant to give it nutrients or give it the frequency of nutrients, just like the the Heal capsule has the the neutral biobase. The men's and women's booster have tons of supplements in them, but you can also use those molecular frequencies of plant food and plant nutrients, and you could broadcast that into the plants themselves to give them a further boost, energy plus frequency, and then you could do it in many different ways. But you don't have to do it with the you don't have to do it with those capsule. By the way, there's another way to do it. You can actually broadcast that frequency. So if you had a block in the middle of your garden and you wanted to then, okay, I want to do more than just frequency, right? I mean, more than just energy. Right here's an infinity block. Then what I would take is literally just a little cup of plant food, and I'd put it inside the infinity block, and that frequency of that plant food is going to go throughout your garden. And note that if you live near that, and you live, of course, there, that plant food's going to be in the field that you're in as well. But just remember that the body takes what it needs and so forth. So it's not detrimental. I think it's a very positive thing, and all of your plants would benefit from those nutrients being broadcast into the field of the block. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, and this is the one thing that has not really been tried yet. There's only been one report in the Telegram chat group of somebody tinkering around with pest control, but it wasn't for plants; it was for themselves. And basically, if you go and look this up in the chat, somebody wanted to see if they could figure out to create a quantum card that would repel mosquitoes, and so they used something. I forgot what they used, but they copied that frequency onto a card, and then they came back and said, "Hey, it works." And it worked. The mosquitoes would not go near this lady when she was wearing this card that was charged with the frequency of some kind of mosquito repellent. So there you go. That's one example of, hey, guess what? Frequencies and quantum energy work to do pest control. Now, as it relates to plants, here's an example here. Now, if you happen to know of a guy named Hugh Lovell, and he's the father of biodynamic farming. In one of his practices, and he had multiple different aspects to biodynamic farming, but one of them is using something he created called the quantum field broadcaster. And this is what it looks like here with this guy standing next to it. And so, if anyone's interested in it, I could share the schematics of this thing and how to build it. But the idea, though, is he built a device that ties into the quantum energy by tying earth and sky together through this pipe. There's wires inside and crystals inside of it. But he built this thing, and it actually captures the quantum energy and then broadcasts it out. And this 9.5-foot broadcaster will cover 2,000 acres. So it's really cool what this thing does. However, my point is, for pest control, this is what he uses for biodynamic pest control. And that little thing that guy's touching, it's like a little shelf. And all you do is you put something in there that's a repellent, and it then will broadcast through the quantum field of the 2,000 acres, and then it'll then permeate that field with that frequency. So not only can you send out nutrients, you could send out stuff for pest control. So if anyone's interested, and this is another really interesting thing I discovered, which was on YouTube. I wanted to go see, I wanted to see testimonies about quantum field broadcasters, people using Hugh Lovell's device. And there's only one video on all of YouTube with this old guy. And I trust a guy who's an old guy, all crusty, with lots of dirt under his fingernails. I'll trust that guy over anyone in a suit, right? And so here's this guy. He's sitting at a table talking to his friends, and he's just John, and he's talking about his field broadcaster and what he experienced with it. And so here's the testimony of this guy, and you can go look this up. I'll put a link in it, link to his video in the description here. But what he did was he had a problem with rabbits, and I'm sure you probably have problems with rabbits. I have problems with birds and bugs, in my garden. But he had a problem with rabbits and deer. And so what he did was he took some deer fur with coyote urine on it, and he put it into the broadcaster right here, like right this little spot. And then that frequency of the coyote urine permeated throughout the field. And guess what he says in his testimony? Didn't see another rabbit ever. No more rabbits, no more deer. They never came near his field again. Because why? Because those animals, they're all, everybody's part. Everything alive is a part of the quantum field. Well, guess what? They sense that presence, the quantum presence of coyote, and they would not come near his field ever again. And then in that same video, he talks about this invasive slug that was eating up his garden or his vegetables and his crops. And he also did something. He didn't say, you can't hear what he says in the video, but this old guy basically says, I put something in the quantum field broadcaster to repel those slugs, but I didn't want to get rid of the natural slugs, because the natural local slugs to my area are beneficial to the symbiotic relationship of the nature there. He didn't want to mess with the indigenous slugs, but he needed to get rid of this invasive slug. So he found something that would repel those slugs, but not the local slugs, and he put that in his quantum field broadcaster. Guess what? No more slugs, no more invasive slugs. But the regular old slugs were happy as clams and just crawling around. But the invasive ones were gone. They never saw them again. So between the lady with the mosquito card and the testimonies of the quantum field broadcaster, and by the way, if you do research on Hugh Lovell and biodynamic farming, there's many testimonies about using quantum as part of biodynamic farming in terms of just getting very positive results as well with regards to thriving plants and etc. So it's interesting amount of work. So I definitely would recommend anyone interested in gardening and growing take a look at what that guy has done. But I digress. Let me get back to quantum energy in your garden. So that's the other thing that no one's really quite tried yet. So I think that I challenge all of you for this growing season. See what you can do for pest control and report back. See what you can do with broadcasting and charging and water, and I just want to hear from all of you, because we're all a community and we all learn from each other. The videos that I do are to share with you what we've experienced, and of course Telegram is not conducive towards learning what people have said in the past, because it just keeps scrolling up and up and up, right? So that's what these videos are for. This is like, hey, this is what a whole bunch of other people have been doing, and this is what they've been posting, because I know you missed it because you just joined last month or whatever, right? But this is it. You can have a quantum garden, and your garden's going to just thrive and do so much better. Just use quantum energy and see what happens. And you know what? Based on everything that people have been reporting, it's going to be nothing but positive results. And that's what's really so cool about quantum energy. It's such a positive thing. So lastly, I'm going to wrap this up with something I found in the research for this video that I thought was pretty amazing. Now, I don't think that these guys, I'm talking about commercialization. So when it comes down to like, hey, does this work or does this not work? I'm going to tell you that, yeah, it works. I just showed you all the pictures. It works. There's something really cool going on here about using quantum energy with gardening, farming, landscaping, etc. But, hey, is it so cool that you could commercialize it for you tinkers who are not just tinkers, but you're entrepreneurial tinkers? For those of you guys out there, guess what? Someone's already beat you to the punch. There's a company out there, and what's really cool is the guys, if you're into the 660 world, and that's kind of funny, that's how like Philip and I met, was in the C60 environment. And so one of the guys in the C60 industry, and the two guys in the industry that run Live Longer Labs, they actually created this company because on the side, they're tinkering around with quantum. And which is really kind of serendipitous because it's so funny that they're doing that and then, you know, we're doing it too. But they did it all off on their own, like completely not associated with Leela. And they put together a company a couple of years ago called Ymechla Ag, Ymechla Agriculture. And if you haven't noticed yet, Ymechla is alchemy spelled backwards. And so these guys have kind of, you know, they're a little bit of humor there. But let me show you their ad on their website and in terms of what they are doing and what they're selling. I mean, you can commercialize this. They're making money at using quantum energy for farming, and I think that is fascinating. So I just wanted to share with this, share this little video with you to kind of show you what the guys at Live Longer Labs are doing now, applying quantum energy to agriculture.
What if all your growing problems could be solved in a better than organic environment? Chemical-free, herbicide-free, and pesticide-free. After years of research and development with the leading chemical engineers, physicists, computer scientists, and agricultural leaders, we are proud to introduce Ymechla Ag's Opquency. Today, growers are in a constant battle with nature, having to implement expensive equipment and chemical processes, and that offer minimal results. That day is over. Introducing Ymechla Ag, a new frontier in applied quantum technology. Ymechla Ag not only eradicates nuisances, it also creates a natural protection around your most important investment, your plants. No employees need to stray, no expensive equipment to buy, and no expensive chemicals. Ymechla Ag Management Program is the answer to your problems at a fraction of the price. Our state-of-the-art holistic approach produces healthier and stronger plants. Ymechla Ag is looking to work with business owners who, like us, are passionate about pushing the limits of their business, who appreciate and embrace innovative technology and its ability to unlock untapped new levels of opportunities by utilizing new, never-before-seen technology. Sign up now to discuss becoming part of the exclusive list of Opquency certified growers. Ymechla Ag, a new frontier in applied quantum technology. Partners with Mother Nature.
So isn't that cool? I think it's totally cool. They're out there making money with the idea of applying quantum to growing. And so can you, if you're entrepreneurial or if you're not entrepreneurial. Bottom line is, hey, I encourage you to have a quantum garden this year. And if that video and that company doesn't demonstrate, because everything they were saying is exactly what I just covered and what the members of our Telegram chat group, the customers of Leela Quantum Tech, are experiencing firsthand. We're experiencing what they described, and so they've just commercialized it. And I think that is just totally cool that, you know, the quantum is really starting to, at least get into the mainstream in terms of just commercialization as well as practical usage. So I encourage all of you, go out and grow your quantum garden this year. All right, so thank you very much for watching this video. I hope this was interesting for you. Always appreciate your time. I know it, you're busy people, and spending a half an hour with me is a lot to ask. So thank you so much. Thank you for your kind comments. If you want to learn more about me, you can find me at the Tinkers Academy. Just type in tinkers.academy at URL window. I also have a Telegram chat group myself at the Health and Healing Telegram chat group, and there will also be links below for Leela Quantum Tech as well as the Quantum Power Channel Telegram group. It'll all be in the video description below. So if you want to ask any questions of me or Philip, you can reach us there. You can reach me here on the screen. And again, I just want to say thank you for your time today. I hope this was interesting. And you know what? Go out. It's May. It's spring. Start growing stuff. Aloha.